So my dad only had one woman in his life. He's not rich. He's not smooth. He's not the loudest guy in the room. What I learned from him about traction, love, and being a real man has changed everything for me. This is what I learned from my dad about dating and confidence. One thing about my dad is he had radical confidence without validation. He never cared what people thought. Even when me and my brother would go out on trips or to the grocery store and he didn't know something, he's like, just go ask people. I realized he did this with my mom when he was a government employee and my mom was a bank teller. He went to the bank, talked to her, and then came back and asked her on a date in front of all her friends at the bank. He genuinely, to sometimes his detriment, like just goes for what he wants. He doesn't disturb the peace. He does have some kind of social calibration where he does understand like he's crossing the line, but he genuinely didn't care what people thought of him. And I think my mom saw that as confidence. And you could see that with my dad. If you need something, just ask for it. Like even when he asked for military discount, he just asked people, hey, my son's in the military. Do you mind if I give a discount? And most people are scared to ask for what they want. But my dad doesn't care what people think. And I think that's something I realized about him. He just is a goofball, but he plays it off where it's genuine innocence, where like he's just asking and he doesn't think it's crossing the line. So he just has no filter sometimes, not in a negative way, but he just asks people, even if he can look like a fool, he doesn't care. And even in our group chat maintained by my dad, even if nobody responds, he always just messages the group. And even when my aunts go out together, my dad's the only guy there and he drives them and he makes jokes about it. He's playing on his phone. And even when we have these church meetings, my dad is always the one who breaks the silence by making jokes. And even if people are making fun of him or laughing at him by making the group fun, he still doesn't care. He doesn't need to always try to calibrate or try to fit to people's wants and needs or to what people are feeling. He does calibrate sometimes, right? If he knows it's a bad situation, he does feel sad, but he literally convicted that, hey, I'm the most fun guy in this group, and he makes everyone laugh, right? And the next part is that humor, his playfulness, right? He never takes things too seriously. When he's around groups, he always finds a way to make everyone laugh, even if it's the detriment of his image, right? He doesn't have an image. He has no ego. He genuinely likes to have fun. And even if people are laughing at him, there were times when his friends would talk bad about him. And there's a situation where one friend betrayed him and said that my dad was flirting with his wife. And my mom said, why don't you speak about this? You know the truth. Like, you should tell the truth. And even though my mom was fighting for him, my dad was like, who cares? Let's just let it go. And I know he was hurt by it, but you could tell he genuinely didn't want to cause issues for my mom to deal with. Even my mom wanted to make it a big deal. He didn't make it a big deal. Because my mom trusted, first of all, that my mom flirted with another girl. So that was crazy, like how just like he didn't care. And he doesn't try to be cool. He knows his strength is not trying to be this cool swab guy compared to my other uncle, who was always the cool swab guy. But I felt like my uncle had this fake identity where he was compensating. But my dad like genuinely was attractive because he knew he was the best looking. He knew he was the most attractive. He knew he was the most goofiest, but he said that's what makes him attractive. And he had that confidence, right? So his joy is magnetic and his authenticity is what made him truly like playful. And it was always his playfulness over any performance of looking cool. And one thing about him also though is that he has a group of friends that talk very positive. They call him and they always look out for him. Like my dad, his phone's always ringing because I think people genuinely love talking to him. He knows how to make people feel special. He knows that if people call him, he'll always have a positive response to him. So I think my mom also knew that my dad was like a flirt, even though physically my mom was his first. Like my mom knew that like girls laughed whenever he was around and stuff. So I think my mom knew that my dad's sense of humor was attractive. And he had that social abundance, even as I think everyone knew that my dad was a flirt, but he was a fun guy, but he didn't do it to like flirt all the time. He was just, his was just magnetic. Even if you feel you don't have any sexual confidence, right? It's about that presence that you know that people like him. And that's one thing my dad really showed. He didn't care that he was a virgin. He just was the funny guy. And people loved him about it, right? And then his emotional control and grounded masculinity. So he never took things personally, like I said before. Whenever you got falsely accused, even though he got hurt by my own family members where I felt like some of my uncles disrespected my dad, and my mom wanted to fight for him. My mom's like, why don't you say something? Why don't you stand up for yourself? My dad's like, what's the point? Because he said this one thing that was very powerful, and I didn't realize this. He said, if I stand up to your uncle, then it'll make your relationship with your sister weird. And it's like these little things, and he would say it in a funny way, in a goofy way, and I was like, Dad, fight for yourself. Like, My two uncles, there's two of them that they really disrespect my dad, right? Because my dad ended up working for them to make money. Like he really throws out his ego to take care of the family. And that's something that, man, like what a man, right? Like he really sacrificed a lot for my family and he had no pride, but I feel like he did have pride. But he said, my pride is my family and their well-being. So that's something that was very attractive and prideful about my dad. So his true strength is silence, right? He holds truth without needing approval. He holds his truth. He knows deep inside that my truth is I didn't do anything wrong. Even people disrespect me, I know who I am, and I don't need other people to validate my truth to feel like it's a truth. He knew it was a truth with him, and my mom was always frustrated by that, but didn't want to put my mom in a bad spot, and he's like, why? Why do this when there's no point? So he always cared about the family, right? And his actions over words, right? Like whenever my family fought, sometimes my mom would do this crazy thing where she would just like leave and go to the store, or we had a dry cleaners and she would sleep there. And then my dad would wake me and my brother at 3 a.m, say, hey, we're gonna go pick up your mom, don't ask why. And then he would go pick up my mom while she was still sleeping and then drive us back to school. So like he would always do these little things where he knew he had to go pick up my mom. Even though he was mad at her and my mom said the meanest things to my dad, he would just go do stuff. And it was just like, man, looking back, and even now, right? I told you one thing about my dad was he promised my mom, he future seeded to my mom, hey, I'm gonna make the best life for you. I'm gonna move to America. So Korea at the time was a very poor country, but somehow he convinced my mom to move to America, right? With my aunt, and he convinced her that I'm gonna make money, and which he did. He came back, and did I say that he made my family rich? I would say maybe not monetarily, but rich in love, stability, because even in our house, he just like always did things and made it happen. He said, I was gonna get a BMW, he got us a new house, he got us a store. Even when our store burned, found ways to make things happen. And did he always succeed? In his eyes, he always did, because he would always exaggerate. So that's one thing he would do. He would always over exaggerate his own successes, but in a fun way where you just want to believe him. You're, okay, Dad, okay, we trust you. Like even now, he does these little things at home where he does a garden or he fixes something up. He's like, look, I fixed it. And it doesn't even work. So he does it no matter what. And even like smoking, he just immediately went cold turkey on smoking. His consistency of confidence and just doing it, even if the result's not good, I think that's ultimate masculine attraction and seduction. I think another thing about my dad is a lot of people go to him for safe space. He has energy where I never seen him cry in front of me, except once when I called him and I asked him about his brother. His little brother died and he couldn't go to his funeral. And I kept on interrogating him. I said, Dad, you okay? You sure you're okay? And then I finally heard him crack. And he immediately said, okay, I gotta go, I gotta work. And he went back to his duty as a man. But I remember when I cried in front of him as a grown adult recently, he doesn't bring it up. He doesn't make me feel guilty about crying. He doesn't say, well, I told you to go back and do this. Why do you let these guys talk bad? He knew at that moment I just needed a safe space. And he said, okay. And I remember I hung up on him and he didn't mention it again. What a person to understand that this was hurting me and he didn't want to bring it up again. Because when I called him back, I thought he was going to bring it up, but he didn't. And he just kept it to himself and basically lets everyone else be emotional. And he takes all the burden as a man, as a father. He never uses, every time he opened up to, like when my mom, my brother, or me opened up about any vulnerabilities or weaknesses we had, he never used it against you. Whenever we fought, he never hurt our pride. He never tried to attack us because I knew that he wanted to take all the burden. He wanted to carry it. And that was something powerful about him, right? He never put his burdens on us, never opened about his pain. He always said it off. He said, it's not a big deal, let it go. If it's not gonna impact our family in a positive way, he just said, let it go. There's something about that's so attractive. And I realized that is something that most women need. They need a safe space to go to. They don't need you to hear about your problems. They want to be able to share your problems and you problem solve it. And not by telling them what to do. Either you let them open up and you fix it without telling them you fix it. He does seek validation though when he does something, but that's the least I feel like he could do. He's always a stable one. He's not the most powerful, most attractive, biggest presence in the room. He's not jacked or tall, but he's the most stable guy. Like he's that one guy I feel like my whole family, not just my mom, but my aunts could count on that he'll always be there. They could always ask him to do stuff and he'll do it. Other guys in my family, they always are not a man of their word, but my dad, even though he does those little things, my mom and me and my brother say, why do you always do things for guys or people? And he says, why not? So he's just always trying to give out a helping without expecting anything back. doing this video today for Father's Day that's coming up, I always thought my dad was the least role model person that I should ever follow or learn from about dating. I thought he was the weakest link in my family. I thought he wasn't the least cool one because he always working. He never took my mom out. He never bought her nice gifts. He forgot anniversaries. But he was the most admired because now my family, my whole other aunt stuff, like my dad is the one person, even if they joke with him, they know he's the best. My mom literally got the best man. I've heard women in my family say that to my mom. And I sometimes have to remind my mom that out of all the women in my family, my mom is the luckiest one because she still has love for my dad. And most of the women in my family don't. I think it's just like they're doing it because they're already stuck there. And it's just like my dad is always bringing some kind of value to my mom. And I just respect him so much more for that. And I realized he's the reason my family's still together today and still having fun. Like now I said, hey dad, for my birthday, I want you, mom, aunt, and uncle to come to Mexico. He immediately texted, don't worry, me, my mom, and your aunt is coming. My uncle obviously can't convince because men have an ego. I think a lot of men were threatened by my dad because in a weird way, he's this least expected attractive guy, but yet he is the most attractive because of all of his strengths, but also all of his flaws because he just owns up to it. He's not scared to show his flaws. This is who I am. And some of his flaws I think he should work on, but he's old now, who cares? And he just accepts it. He lost all his teeth. Sometimes he speaks with all his teeth. Even when he's eating, has food in his mouth, he speaks. When they call him out, he goes like this. He still talks. He still goes like this, and he still talks to people. And every girl that I remember I brought to him, he jokes. He never crosses the line too much with them, but he makes all of them laugh. And all of my girls feel so safe with them. I had one girl who literally stayed and just talked to her. Like my dad has a way of just letting these girls, like girls, they say they don't know if they just talk to a guy one-on-one, especially if they feel creepy. But my dad finds a way to have all my girls just talk to him one-on-one when I'm not there. I'm not at the gym, they're at the house where my dad's just talking to him. Because he just is a man who's not trying to impress anyone. He just is. He just is. He just loves being himself. That's what is attractive. So, what I learned from this is truly, guys, at some point, yes, you do need to learn the skills of how to talk to women, how to attract a woman, how to initially make her find you attractive, like my dad did probably because my mom said, yo, your dad's so different from the first time I met him. But to keep a stable relationship, to be a man who your mom could fall in love with you every single day, is to just be you. Because my dad truly loves himself more than enough. He loves my family. He truly loves his family more than himself. And you see, because he never, ever was a burden to my family. That's one thing I realized. My dad never caused issues. It was either me, my brother, or my mom. My dad always fixed it. And that's something I feel like a lot of men are missing these days. And we forget that seduction or dating or attraction is not about these skills, about just talking. Sometimes about your inner identity. And you could finally create that with the skills to do that. Because I still think you need skills how to talk and how to women. But to have that identity is very powerful. So if you're building real confidence, like the kind that my dad lives by every single day, I made a free daily structure PDF to help you start. Download it here. And also tell me in the comments, what's something your father or a role model, or what's something you learned from this video that you could take with you to help you in your journey. Thanks, guys. Captain Daniel out.